She stabbed the fork into her turkey like it had personally offended her, then leaned in close enough that I could smell the Merlot on her breath, and dropped the sentence like a bomb. At least my ex knew how to spend money. It wasn't whispered. It wasn't muttered. It was surgical, deliberate, and loud enough to punch through the polite clatter of cutlery and the hum of relatives trading gossip. The table went weirdly quiet, like a movie theater right before the main character finally snaps. A couple cousins chuckled nervously. Her brother choked on his sparkling water. Across from me, Uncle Ron, a guy who still wears a Bluetooth headset everywhere like it's 2007, froze mid-bite, eyes darting between us like he wasn't sure if this was a joke or a declaration of war. I passed the green beans down the table without a word. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just kept cutting my turkey. Same pace, same rhythm, like her sentence hadn't landed at all. Inside, I wasn't even mad. That's the part one think would have scared her, if she'd been paying enough attention. I wasn't hurt. Wasn't shocked. I was bored. Bored of the games. The subtle digs at my career. The eye rolls when I talked about budget planning. The way she smiled brighter for her phone camera than for me. That sentence wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. She grinned, looking around, like she expected backup. I mean, I'm just saying, he never worried about price tags. He made life fun. She glanced at her cousin Lindsay, who nodded too eagerly, clearly drunk off white wine and validation. I stayed focused on the cranberry sauce like it was my full-time job. Someone cleared their throat. Her father, the man whose golf debt I'd quietly paid off last year when a loan shark started calling the house. He shot me a look that tried to say sorry, but I wasn't interested in translation services that night. I looked up briefly, just enough to let her see I heard her, just enough for her to register that I wasn't going to rise to it, that there wouldn't be a scene. No yelling, no defending my manhood. That, in itself, unsettled her more than any clapback ever could. Oh, come on. I'm kidding, she added, twisting the stem of her wine glass between her fingers like she was stirring the silence. God, you're so sensitive. No, I said finally. I'm just listening. And I was. Not to her voice. To the echo of what that sentence really meant. See, most men get gutted by moments like that. Most men would replay it in the shower for the next 6 months. But I'd heard her say worse. Not to my face, sure, but through cracked doors. Through thin walls. She thought I didn't pay attention. That I was too slow. Too kind. Too mild-mannered. But what she never figured out, what none of them ever do, is that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means patience. I watched her laugh and sip her wine, proud of herself. Her friends had started doing that thing women do when they try to quietly affirm bad behavior, smiling too big, sipping their drinks fast, looking around to see who's reacting. They were already rewriting the moment in real time. She was just joking. He's too serious. They've probably had money problems. Maybe he's insecure. Let them spin their little stories. What they didn't know was that the guest bathroom upstairs still had the original contractor invoice taped to the inside of the cabinet, because I never throw away receipts. What they didn't know was that the vacation photos she posted on Instagram, half those flights were on points I'd accrued from business trips. Her so-called independent shopping sprees, mostly charged to our joint account, but always after midnight, when she assumed I was asleep. And what they really didn't know, what even she had forgotten, was that I kept a safe in the garage, not for jewelry. Not for guns. For records. Every purchase. Every transfer. Every favor I did for her ex, back when she swore they were just old friends trying to get back on their feet. I kept it all. Not because I planned to use it, but because some part of me, even back then, knew this woman would eventually try to burn me in front of my own blood. The laughter around the table resumed, thin and awkward, like people were trying to pretend they hadn't witnessed the opening act of a marital autopsy. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of water, and smiled. Not at her, but at my own reflection in the darkened window behind her. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't wondering how we got here. I was wondering how deep I wanted the knife to go. She was still talking, something about how he used to take her to little weekend cabins with no itinerary, just vibes. I tuned it out. Instead, I imagined a different kind of cabin. One with legal boxes, folders, records. One with no reception. Just signatures and consequences. I caught her brother watching me. His face said it all. Why aren't you doing anything? Oh, but I was. The real mistake wasn't what she said. The real mistake was assuming I had nothing left to say. She was in the bedroom on speakerphone with her cousin, talking just loud enough to make sure I could hear every syllable. He just sat there like a scared little accountant. God, even Dad looked embarrassed for him. She laughed that high-pitched laugh she only used when she was trying to seem more charming than cruel. Pathetic. Honestly, I was bored halfway through dinner. It's like living with a spreadsheet in khakis. I was in the garage, under a dim yellow bulb that buzzed just enough to match the mood. I dusted off the old safe I hadn't opened in over 5 years. Not because I'd forgotten about it. I just hadn't needed it, until now. It was built like a tank. A leftover from my grandfather's estate. People used to hide cash or watches in these. I hid receipts, documents, quiet knives. The combination hadn't changed. My fingers moved without thinking. 34, 11, 9, 46. The steel groaned open like it didn't approve of being disturbed. Inside were folders, thick, labeled, cross-referenced, chronological. There was a time she called me obsessive. You don't need to keep all this. Who even saves this kind of stuff? I did. Not because I thought she'd cheat or humiliate me at Thanksgiving dinner, but because I know people. People change. People forget. But paper remembers. I pulled out the maroon folder labeled July 2012 to March 2013. Her rebuilding phase. The months after she and her ex supposedly had their last contact, right before we moved in together. I had played the supportive boyfriend back then. Helped her cut financial ties. Paid off her old car note. Even gave her ex-boyfriend a short-term loan, $74,000, because he just needed a little runway to get his life back on track. I remember his handshake, sweaty, limp, desperate. His breath still sharp with whatever liquor he thought I wouldn't notice. He promised to pay me back, within the year, complete with a sloppily drafted promissory note on a kitchen table placemat he insisted was temporary. I had it rewritten, legally notarized, witnessed, filed, and forgotten. Until now. I pulled the document out slowly, the pages slightly curled at the edges from time and humidity. The ink was faded but legible. His signature, Darren LeClaire, right under the repayment clause, which, thanks to compounding interest and his zero payments, now put the amount owed at just over $128,000. I ran my thumb across the embossed notary stamp, then opened a fresh browser tab on my laptop. Typed in Aegis Bridge Holdings, Compliance Department. He worked there now. Mid-level finance manager. Cleaned himself up, apparently. Married some yoga instructor. Posted aspirational garbage on LinkedIn like, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Cute. I smiled. Clicked through their staff directory. There it was, compliance@aegisbridge.com. At 1:12 a.m., I composed a message. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just detailed. The subject line read, Material disclosure, attached promissory note. The body included a 2-sentence summary, the legal clause indicating financial liability relevant to securities disclosures, and a line that said, failure to disclose could constitute grounds for regulatory action. Just enough to make them take it seriously. Just enough to get the right kind of panic going. I attached a PDF with the note and an interest calculation sheet I generated using a finance tool she once called Overkill. I also included a subpoena template, drafted years ago when I briefly considered small claims, back before I thought revenge was too much effort. Before I hit send, I paused. Not out of doubt, out of precision. This wasn't a shotgun blast. It was a sniper shot. The moment that email left my outbox, everything changed. Not for me. I'd already accepted the kind of man I was. Not a fighter. Not a yeller. Just someone who finishes what others start. She still thought she was operating in a vacuum. Still believed she was the smartest voice in the room, because she talked the loudest. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my silence wasn't empty. It was strategy. By the time she was giggling to her cousin about how he still folds my towels like we're in a hotel, I had already rerouted her assumptions through 3 layers of planning. She didn't know the business credit card she just used for that overpriced coat had been issued under a shell account I controlled entirely. Didn't know her phone plan was still in my name, or that the property deed for the lake house was quietly restructured into a land trust 2 months ago. All she saw was a man too tired to argue. All I saw was a blueprint for extraction. And Darren? He was just the first pressure point. A weak hinge on a door she never knew could be slammed shut. I stared at the safe, still open, still humming with quiet memory. I wasn't angry. I was awake. The note was a joke when he signed it. I remember his smug little smirk, the way he kept checking over his shoulder like he expected someone to bust through the window and tell him the free money party was over. He was sitting at our kitchen table, still smelling like court-ordered sobriety, 1 month out from his second DUI and half a step away from living in his mom's basement. His hands shook when he signed. Not because he was nervous, but because his body hadn't figured out how to run on responsibility yet. "Thanks, man. Really," he said, sliding the paper back toward me like it was a bar napkin. "I'll pay it back before the wedding. Promise." That wedding never happened. Thank God. Back then, I told myself I was doing it for her. She was crying over how he just needs a break, and he's not a bad guy, just messed up. I didn't know her well enough yet to recognize that tone. The one where she pretends to care just enough to feel noble, but never enough to take accountability. I was the fixer. She was the actress. He was the problem we could both feel good about solving. I tucked the promissory note into a file back then and forgot about it. Until she opened her mouth at Thanksgiving and reminded me exactly how disposable I was to her now. How quickly she'd rewritten our entire history into some beige-colored background noise, so she could play the victim of a husband who never did anything exciting, while she propped up the ghost of her broke ex like he was some kind of misunderstood hero. It was almost poetic. Her cruelty reactivated the very clause that would end him. I reread the note under the flickering garage light. $74,000. Signed. Notarized. Payable in full within 12 months. He hadn't paid a single cent. No emails. No phone calls. Not even a courtesy text. In his mind, it had probably vanished into the same place his other mistakes went, deep under a pile of excuses and yoga mantra self-help quotes about forgiving yourself. He worked at Aegis Bridge Holdings now. Mid-tier finance firm. SEC regulated. Public-facing accounts. He'd cleaned up well, judging by the Pinterest-worthy photos his wife posted of their 2 kids and the golden retriever with its own Instagram. I knew because I'd already scrolled through the entire feed that night, noting the locations, the captions, the vacations. One photo caught my eye, him holding a glass of champagne in Dubai, tagged at a luxury client summit. The caption? "Grateful to do what I love every day." Grateful. I opened my laptop and began assembling the digital equivalent of a guillotine. The note was scanned cleanly, OCR ready, with metadata. I ran the numbers again using a conservative 6.75% annual interest rate, compounded annually. $128,442.86. Still nothing compared to what I could have made investing it. But money wasn't the point anymore. Control was. The compliance officer's name was easy to find. A quick search of SEC filings pulled his email from a quarterly disclosure form. I drafted the message like I was back in law school, direct, clinical, completely devoid of emotion. Subject, material disclosure, undeclared private liability. Body, to whom it may concern. Attached is a scanned copy of a notarized promissory note dated date, signed by Darren LeClaire, currently employed by Aegis Bridge Holdings. As per SEC Regulation S.K., Item 103 and other disclosure requirements. This financial liability exceeds thresholds that may constitute a conflict of interest or material misrepresentation to stakeholders if left unreported. Included are original note, amortization table with current balance, subpoena draft, template only. Please confirm receipt. Regards. Name. I read it 3 times before attaching the files. Then I hesitated, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to be sure it hurt. I remembered him at that kitchen table, twirling a pin like he was doing me a favor. I remembered how, 6 months later, I saw him at a gas station in her passenger seat, his hand on her thigh. She said it was nothing, that she didn't want to upset me. Now, I hoped he choked on that nothing. I hit send. The timestamp hit 1:12 a.m. There's a strange silence after you make a move like that. Not relief, not adrenaline, just this dense, heavy stillness, like the moment before an explosion in a movie, when everything slows down and the camera zooms in on the guy who's about to realize his entire world just turned to glass. I left the garage and walked back inside. She was asleep, mouth half open, phone still in her hand, screen lit up with Instagram comments praising her latest holiday charcuterie board. She looked so proud of herself, so content. I watched her for a long moment and realized I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel grief. I felt nothing at all. Not because I was empty, because I'd already shifted into the next phase. She thought I was the kind of man who collects quiet humiliations like unpaid parking tickets. But I was something else entirely. I was the guy who files, who dates, who timestamps, and who always collects. The first transfer hit at 5:11 a.m., quiet, surgical, permanent. I was drinking black coffee in the home office while the streetlights still burned outside, watching account balances shift like chess pieces. No alarms, no warnings, just numbers folding into other numbers under my fingertips. The brokerage account was the first to go. Technically, It had always been in my name. She just liked to call it our retirement, as if Pinterest boards full of Tuscany villas and spa resorts counted as financial contributions. I'd spent years letting her treat it like a shared dream while I did all the math, paid the taxes, and took the market risks. Now, it was routed through a custodial trust set up under my LLC. She wouldn't find a penny without a financial detective and a court order, which she wouldn't know how to ask for, let alone win. Next came the business credit card, the one she used for her branding expenses, like five-star hair salons and networking brunches that mysteriously coincided with bottomless mimosas. I opened the issuer's admin panel, clicked suspend, and felt something in me relax. At 5:42 a.m., the system sent her an automated email. Your access has been restricted pending review. She wouldn't read it. She never read system emails. But she'd find out soon enough, probably while trying to buy another overpriced candle she'd claim was a mood reset. The emergency fund was trickier. She always referred to it as the backup plan, like it was some kind of invisible parachute that would catch her if life got too hard. What she didn't know was that I'd already started transferring it 6 weeks ago, slowly, quietly, into a charitable annuity trust under my name, designed for end-of-life donations. Legal, tax-shielded, untouchable by her, unless she planned to fake my death and forge my signature. By 6 a.m., the skeleton was mostly hollow. At 6:08, I got the first hint that the pressure was shifting. Her friend Rachel texted me. Yes, me. Hey, weird question. Did you pull a payment from my Venmo? My deposit bounced this morning. She had no idea what she was stepping into. I typed back, no idea. Maybe ask your brunch partner. Exactly 1 minute later, I heard the scream. It started as a loud, what? And then devolved into crashing footsteps and panicked movement upstairs. Drawers opened. A closet door slammed. Her voice ricocheted off the stairwell as she stormed into the hallway, barefoot, phone in one hand, panic in the other. Did you change something with the card? She shouted. I didn't answer. Hello. My Uber says payment failed, and Rachel just called me freaking out. Still nothing. She was used to me answering, used to me fixing things, used to the quiet, dutiful accountant husband who would pause his day to make her chaos disappear. But I'd turned that part of me off. Cold. By the time she reached the bottom of the stairs, I was already halfway out the door in a pressed shirt and dark jeans, keys in hand. She stepped in front of me, arms flailing. What the hell is going on? I paused, gave her 1 full second of eye contact. You should check the email on your credit card account, I said. Then I walked past her, got into my car, and backed out of the driveway while she stood barefoot in a hoodie, blinking in the morning light like she didn't recognize her own reflection in the glass door. I drove to the bank. It wasn't just about the money. It was about control. She'd spent the last 3 years pretending she was the one with the options, the one with the leverage, the one who could leave anytime she wanted. What she never saw, what she never bothered to see, was that every luxury she flaunted, every spontaneous weekend self-care, escape, every gift bag for her niece's birthday party, all of it passed through me. I was the river. She was just collecting the water in a pretty vase. At the bank, I met with my trust officer. We finalized the last stages of a freeze on shared assets pending reclassification. I handed over 1 final notarized form and watched her sign it with a polite smile. Everything okay? She asked. Just organizing some personal accounts, I replied. Back home, I knew the spiral would be starting. She'd call the card company. They'd tell her she no longer had access. She'd call Rachel again. Rachel would demand answers. She'd log into the brokerage site, only to find her access revoked. Maybe she'd try calling her cousin or her brother, asking if they'd heard anything. They hadn't. Yet. But they would. Not from me, though. I wouldn't need to say a word. She'd do that part for me, screaming into every corner of her world as it began to collapse, all while I kept moving, quiet, precise, unbothered. The day she called me pathetic was the day I decided to make myself disappear from her narrative, her finances, and eventually her life. And she still hadn't even seen the Real storm coming. He pulled into the driveway like a man already half defeated, too fast, too loud, like volume could outrun consequence. His car was some least special hybrid SUV, probably chosen by his wife's financial advisor to project eco-conscious family man, while still fitting 2 car seats and a dog crate. He parked crooked, engine still running, and nearly tripped over himself getting out. No swagger, no sunglasses. Just a pale face and the kind of panicked energy you only see in people who've been warned their name's about to show up in a federal filing. 8:41 a.m. I was in the backyard, trimming hedges. Not because they needed it. Because I wanted to look calm when he found me. Hey, he shouted. Hey, man, we need to talk. I didn't turn right away. Took one more deliberate clip of the shears. Then looked over my shoulder. And there he was. Darren LeClaire. Former musician, former failure, current father of two, and corporate liability. Shirt untucked. Tie half on like he'd tried to look professional and gave up somewhere near the freeway. Eyes bloodshot, but not from booze. No, this was fear. He stepped closer, hands up like I was holding a gun instead of garden tools. Look, I know you're upset. And you're right, okay? I should have handled things differently back then. I should have paid you back. I stayed quiet. He swallowed hard. But please, if that compliance department moves forward with this, I'm dead in the water. My license is gone. They'll freeze me out of every account I touch. I've got kids, man. Still nothing for me. He looked around the yard like maybe a neighbor was watching, like he might find sympathy in a set of blinds. I didn't think you'd ever collect, he muttered. And there it was. Not an apology. Not even a defense. A calculation. The kind cowards make when they weigh what they can get away with. I finally set the shears down on the grass, stood straight, and looked him in the eye. You're right, I said. I wasn't going to collect. His brow twitched. Hope tried to creep in. I stepped closer. Calm. Casual. But your girlfriend did. It landed like a headshot. He blinked. Opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked down. You could practically hear the gears grinding behind his temples, trying to calculate who I meant. And then he realized. His face drained in real time. Like someone pulled the plug on his circulatory system. You mean? His voice cracked. Her. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She didn't know, he stammered. That was between us. She wasn't supposed to know about the loan. I tilted my head. Then maybe you shouldn't have bragged about how you used to borrow money from that guy and never paid it back, while she was tipsy in Tulum and tagging you in Instagram stories. His lips parted again, but no words came. Just silence and the unmistakable scent of dread. She'd heard it. Or at least enough. And drunk women don't whisper. She laughed about it with her cousin over margaritas and poolside gossip. And her cousin? Well, she worked for a legal firm that specialized in asset tracing. Not high-level stuff. Just enough to recognize a notarized name when she saw one in a drawer during a holiday visit to our house 2 months ago. That's when the dominoes started. I didn't need to chase anyone. They ran to me. You don't have to go through with this, he said quietly, now visibly sweating. I'll pay you back. Every cent. Just don't send anything else to my firm. Please. You think this is about money? I asked. He blinked. Isn't it? No, I said. It's about correction. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, she didn't mean to stir anything up. You know how she is. That sentence. That familiar tone. Like he thought we were still on the same team. Still part of some secret fraternity of men who understood that women were just messy, and it was our job to sweep up after them. But I wasn't on his team. I never was. I'm not here to clean up her mess, I said. I'm just making sure she sees it. He rubbed his jaw, tried to say something else, then looked down, defeated. I turned back to my hedge. You should get going. You've probably got a compliance call coming. He didn't move. I mean it. I scheduled it for 9 a.m. He flinched like I'd struck him, then stumbled backward toward his car. He opened the door, hesitated, then looked at me one last time. I should have paid you back. I didn't respond. He drove off fast, tires squealing slightly. Half panicked, half resigned. By the time he pulled out of my neighborhood, the only sound left was the soft snip of hedge clippers as I returned to trimming. It was almost meditative. He was gone, but she was still in the house. And she had no idea what her casual cruelty had activated. Because that debt? It was never about him. It was always hers. She just hadn't been billed yet. She was on the couch when the first call came in, legs draped over the armrest like a teenager on summer break, phone to her ear and wine glass already half empty, even though it was barely noon. Her cousin Bree's voice was shrill enough to cut through the speakerphone. What the hell is going on? Are you pressing charges on Mitch? She snorted. God, no. Who told you that? Uncle Ray said you lawyered up and sent some compliance crap to his company. That's just my husband being dramatic. It's nothing. She rolled her eyes, clearly forgetting I was in the same house, just behind a closed office door with full access to every legal document she hadn't bothered to read over the last 5 years. You're sure? Bree asked. Because Mitch just got pulled from a client file and his boss said something about a material conflict. He's freaking out. Mitch is always freaking out. It's a personality trait. She laughed, swirling the wine in her glass. Tell him to grow a spine. Bree hesitated. He said the issues from a loan he never repaid, from you guys." There was a pause. Then she dropped into that defensive, sing-song tone she used when cornered. "What? No, that was ages ago, and it wasn't even a real loan. My husband was just, I don't know, being generous or something. It was symbolic. Not legal." Bree didn't respond. The call dropped a moment later. Not because of bad reception. Because I terminated her line. I sat in my office, watching the admin dashboard update in real time. 3 lines. Hers. Her iPad. Her backup phone for business. All disconnected. All under my name. She tried calling Bree back. Nothing. Tried texting. No delivery dots. Tried rebooting the phone like it was a glitch and not a controlled descent. It took her almost 5 full minutes before she turned to me. "Did you do something to my phone?" I glanced up from my laptop. "Must be a service outage." She narrowed her eyes. "You sure? Maybe check your account." She tried, and found she didn't have the login credentials. Never had. That was always my domain, set up under my business, billed to my corporate Amex, all run through my cloud. While she was busy pretending I was too dull to be dangerous, I'd been laying the pipes under her whole life. 10 minutes later, the house phone rang. The one nobody uses except her mother. She grabbed it like a drowning woman catching a rope. I listened from the hallway. "Hi, Mom." A pause. "What do you mean, what's going on?" Another pause, longer this time. "Legal documents?" What packet?" I walked into the kitchen just as her hand covered her mouth. She turned slowly, pale, phone still pressed to her ear like it might stop her from falling apart. No, I didn't know he sent anything." "What does it say?" She was unraveling by degrees. You could see it in her knees, the way they slowly started to bend under her own weight. Her mother wasn't someone who called over rumors. Her mother called when things were already too far gone. "Mom, I don't know. I swear, I don't know what he's doing." It was the first honest thing she'd said in days. 20 minutes after she hung up, there was a knock at the door. Not forceful, not angry, just final. She opened it and saw her mother standing there, lips pressed tight, expression unreadable. In her hands, a thick envelope with my courier services logo stamped clean across the front. She tried to usher her inside, but her mother didn't budge. Just held the envelope out like it was a weapon she didn't want to be caught carrying. "What is this?" her mom asked. She opened the packet right there on the doorstep. Her eyes scanned fast, then stopped. Then again, and again. Each page felt heavier than the last. Itemized account changes. Authorization removals. Declarations of asset transfers. Attached was a copy of the promissory note with Mitch's signature, plus the interest calculation, subpoena draft, and compliance notice receipt. All neatly tabbed and cross-referenced. I'd sent the same packet to her father, her brother, and her aunt. Not because I needed to, because she made the game public. So I made the record official. Her mother didn't say another word. Just turned and walked away. No hug. No goodbye. Just gone. She didn't come inside after that. She stood in the doorway for almost a full minute, envelope in hand, eyes glassy but dry. And for once, she didn't speak. Not to me. Not to herself. Not to her reflection in the glass door. Because that's the thing about manipulation. It only works when the crowd still believes you. And her crowd was already vanishing. Not out of cruelty. Out of embarrassment. Because nobody wants to be associated with the person who weaponized their silence and forgot that the paperwork always talks back. I didn't send the email until 3:23 a.m., 2 nights after it all started, well after the house had gone quiet and the lights were off. She'd been moving around like a raccoon caught in a daylight trap, pacing from room to room, whispering into now useless phones, refreshing apps that wouldn't load, rereading the legal packet like it might change if she blinked hard enough. But I waited. Not for her. For them. The family. The same crowd that chuckled politely when she made the crack about her ex. The same people who raised their glasses while I passed the green beans, silent and invisible. They'd been quiet since. Not reaching out. Not asking what happened. Just watching. Judging. Waiting to see who would blink first. So I blinked. The video wasn't fancy. Just an iPhone clip from the corner of the dining room. Set to record before the turkey was carved. I always recorded holidays. Called it nostalgia. She called it your weird little archivist thing. But this time it paid off. 10 seconds. That's all I needed. The clip opened mid-laughter. Her voice, loud and sharp. At least my ex knew how to spend money. Then the tittering of half-drunk relatives. Her leaning back with her wine, all smug satisfaction. And me, sitting there. Not speaking. Not reacting. Just watching her. Still. It was the stillness that made the clip land harder than any argument ever could. Attached to the video was a single PDF, the promissory note from Mitch. Dated Signed. Stamped. With one line of text in the email body. She said it in public. So did I. No context. No accusation. Just mirror logic. Her words. My face. Her debt. My disclosure. I sent it to 13 people. Her parents. Her brother. Her aunt and uncle. Cousins. The 2 college friends she always invited even though nobody remembered why. Within 15 minutes, 5 opened it. By sunrise, 8. I didn't get a wave of replies. Just silence and one-word acknowledgments. A few received emails. An accidental out-of-office bounce back from her aunt, who was apparently on a cruise. But then, around 8:04 a.m., I got the first real message. It was from her Uncle Rob, the same one who patted me on the back after dinner and said, "Don't take it personally. She's always had a sharp mouth." His reply read, "You always deserved better." That was it. But that sentence held more weight than any of her explanations, defenses, or apologies ever could. Because Rob was hers, not mine. He'd been in her corner since she was in braces. And now? Now he was stepping quietly away from the blast zone, trying not to look back. By noon, I had 2 more messages. One from her cousin Jess. I had no idea. "I'm so sorry." Another from her brother. Just a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else. He wasn't known for deep emotion. She noticed the shift before I even said anything. When she came down the stairs that morning, she looked at me like something had shifted in the gravitational pull of the house. Like she could feel the emails before she even checked. "Did you do something?" she asked. I didn't answer. Just kept sipping my coffee. I'd stirred honey into it that morning. For no reason other than I knew it would annoy her. Her phone, now restored, after she finally figured out how to get on a prepaid plan, dinged once. Then twice. Then again. I watched her eyes scan the screen. Watched her lips tighten as she read something that clearly wasn't meant for me to hear. "What did you send them?" she whispered. I didn't respond. "You're making me look like a villain." I tilted my head. "You said it in public." She didn't respond. Didn't scream. Just walked to the kitchen and stared at the wall, like maybe if she looked long enough it would rewrite the moment. But that's the thing with video. You can't gaslight footage. There's no "you're taking it out of context." No, I was just kidding. No, "you're being dramatic." It was there. Frozen. 10 seconds that changed the narrative from "he's being weird" to maybe she pushed too far. The rest of the family wouldn't say anything overt. That's not how they worked. No one would call her out. No one would confront her. They'd just stop including her in things. Quietly. Gently. Like letting a guest fall off a mailing list. And for someone like her, that silence was more lethal than any insult. It was 9:16 a.m. when the email hit my inbox. No fanfare. No dramatic subject line. Just corporate efficiency at its finest. From compliance@aegisbridge.com. Subject: Notification of internal action. Dear Redacted, this is to formally notify you that Aegis Bridge Holdings has taken immediate action to terminate the employment of Mr. Darren LeClaire, effective immediately. After internal review, it has come to our attention that the subject of a previously undeclared financial liability, exceeding reporting thresholds, constitutes a breach of compliance policy under Section 8.1.3 of our Internal Ethics Code. We appreciate your documentation and transparency. Sincerely, Compliance Office, Aegis Bridge Holdings. That was it. No drama. No apology. Just swift, surgical decapitation of a man whose past came back dressed in legal formatting and PDF attachments. And then I waited. 10 minutes later, I heard the front door slam. Not close, gently. Slam. The kind of slam that carries desperation, confusion, and, most of all, fear. She was panting, like she'd run down the street, phone gripped in her hand as if it might evaporate if she let go. Her hair was a mess, her sweatshirt stained with spilled coffee, and her voice already rising before she made it into the room. "What did you do?" I looked up from my desk, calm as a surgeon mid-procedure. "Be specific." "Darren," she gasped. "He just called me from a parking lot. They fired him." Fired. Like, corporate announcement fired. "He's losing his license, his firm access." He said they're freezing his securities clearance. He said they cited you by name. She said the word "you" like it was a curse. I leaned back. Slowly. Let the silence hang just long enough for her heart rate to spike another few beats. She waved her phone in front of me like it was a weapon. "He said you reported some ancient loan and they actually acted on it. What the hell kind of psycho are you?" That was the moment I pulled open the second drawer of my desk and handed her the note. Not a copy of the one I sent the firm. A different one. Same loan. Same amount. Same signature. Only this one. This one had her name on it too. Signed. Dated. Witnessed by her. Back when she co-signed just to help him rebuild. Back when she played financial savior with money she didn't understand and didn't earn. Back when she told me, "It's just paperwork. He's not actually going to default." Her hands trembled as she took it. She scanned it fast, mouth moving without words, eyes darting like she could will the ink to say something else. Why do you have this?" she asked. "I keep records," I said. "But that wasn't a real signature," she said, too quickly. I pointed to the witness line. "You initialed next to it. Twice. But it's old. It's not even valid anymore." "It's enforceable," I said. "And actionable. And admissible." She dropped into the chair across from me, knees suddenly unsure of their job. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this?" "Because he's not just your ex," I said. "He's your mistake. And you made it my liability." Her face contorted, emotions struggling to figure out who was in charge. Rage, guilt, confusion, fear. Fear was winning. "You could have just confronted me. Talked to me. We could have fixed it." I tilted my head. "You mean like the way you talked to me in front of your entire family? Or the way you laughed about how pathetic I looked while I paid for the roof over your ex's head and the wine in your cousin's glass?" She fell silent. Good. Silence was the only thing that made her honest. "I didn't think you'd ever do something like this," she said. "I know," I replied. "That's the problem." She tried to stand. Failed. Sat back down. "He's going to lose everything. His mortgage, his kids' school tuition, his reputation. You understand that, right?" I nodded slowly. "I do." She waited for more. A backpedal. A sign of guilt. Something. But there was nothing left for her in my voice. Because when I gave her that note, I gave her more than just a piece of paper. I handed her the realization that everything she relied on, every buffer, every escape plan, every safety net she thought made her untouchable, was gone, pulled out from beneath her by the one person she never expected to move. She clutched the note tighter, like maybe she could wring the consequences out of it. But it wouldn't help, because she was holding the evidence. And the weapon. And both bore her name. They booked the conference room at one of those glass-walled law offices downtown. The kind that screams, "We bill by the minute." And yes, we're soulless, but at least we have espresso. The lights were too bright. The chairs too smooth. Everything sanitized and beige, like they were hoping the lack of personality would hide the lack of leverage. I walked in alone. No lawyer. No entourage. Just me. A man they assumed would show up begging to keep the furniture or compromise on the mortgage. She was already seated. Pale, stiff, wearing a blazer that didn't quite sit right, shoulders too tight, sleeves bunched like she grabbed the first thing expensive enough to pass for composed. Her lips pressed into a thin line when she saw me. No greeting. No eye contact. Just a flicker of something behind her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Restraint. Her lawyer stood when I entered, forced a polite nod. Middle-aged, overly moisturized, the kind of guy who uses phrases like amicable separation while sharpening knives under the table. He gestured to the chair across from them. "Thanks for coming," he said. "We've drafted an updated settlement offer for your review." He slid a folder across the table like it was a peace treaty. I didn't touch it, didn't even glance. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket and placed a black USB drive onto the polished surface. It made a small click when it hit the table, one of those soft, final sounds that always lands louder than expected in rooms like this. He looked at it, then at me. "What's this?" I folded my hands. "Calm. Still. Everything," I said. No dramatics. No posturing. Just a truth he didn't want to unwrap. He picked up the drive carefully, like it might bite, slid it into his laptop. The screen lit up, casting pale light onto both their faces. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. She hadn't said a word. The first folder was labeled M+J_communications. Inside, every text message she'd ever sent to Mitch over the last 4 years. Not the ones from her phone. The ones synced from our cloud backup, because years ago, she borrowed my iPad and forgot to log out. I'd copied everything then. Never deleted it. Dates. Times. Emojis. Photos. The second folder, bank transfers. Seemingly harmless payments to personal trainer, studio fee, event deposit. But all tied to him. Different aliases. Different routing numbers. I'd mapped them all. Even the one that paid for the Dubai hotel when he posted that champagne photo. The third folder, call logs. Cross-reference to her work schedule. Dozens of conversations in the middle of strategy retreats and off-site planning sessions. Her lawyer clicked slowly. Each folder hit him like a falling brick. But the last file? That was the blade. It was labeled simply, dinner.mp3. He double-clicked. Her voice filled the room. Clear, sharpened by audio cleanup software. At least my ex knew how to spend money. She laughed, followed by clinking glasses and muffled chuckles. My husband still uses coupons. I swear, if I ever get a raise, I'm running. Then a few seconds of silence. And another voice, her cousin's, saying, "Don't say that out loud." Then her again, "Why not? What's he gonna do, spreadsheet me to death?" The lawyer didn't finish the clip. He closed the player, sat back, and looked at her. She couldn't look at either of us. Her eyes were locked on a spot on the table, like if she stared hard enough, the laminate might peel away and swallow her whole. I leaned forward, not to threaten, not to gloat, just to clarify. Everything on that drive is admissible. Timelines are cross-referenced. All financial activity tied to shared accounts has been itemized. I've also logged access records from our home Wi-Fi router for additional device pings during restricted hours. If we go to court, Discovery will not be kind to you. The lawyer didn't argue, didn't negotiate. He just nodded. Once. Slowly. Because he saw it now. Not a man trying to keep a house. A man who'd already built a case. "This new offer," I said, tapping the untouched folder with one finger. "Throw it away. Draft a new one. Start with nothing." She finally looked at me. Eyes glassy. "You're really doing this?" "No," I said. "You did this. I'm just documenting it." The lawyer stood, already closing his laptop. "I'll be in touch," he murmured. She remained seated. Frozen. I walked out of the room with the same calm I walked in with. No slamming doors. No speeches. No backward glance. Because in that moment, she finally understood. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a conclusion. She showed up at dusk. Hood up, sunglasses on, like the neighbors in my new complex were waiting to recognize her. My place was smaller now, tighter, quieter. Not because I had to downsize. I just didn't feel like wasting space anymore. It was a condo with clean lines, stainless steel, and silence. A place built for clarity. She knocked once. Soft. Like if she made too much noise, the whole house might collapse. I opened the door. She looked smaller, paler. No makeup. Hair pulled back like she didn't have the energy to pretend anymore. And in her hands, nothing. Not a bag. Not a folder. Just herself. Raw. Tired. Fragile in a way she used to weaponize. But now it looked unintentional. Almost real. "I didn't come to fight," she said. I nodded. Stepped aside. Let her in. She stood in the hallway like she didn't recognize the world anymore. Everything she saw was unfamiliar. No framed photos. No joint souvenirs. No echo of a life she used to know. Just the smell of black coffee and the sound of an air purifier humming low. "This is nice," she mumbled, almost to herself. Simple. I didn't answer. She turned slowly. "I didn't mean it like that, at Thanksgiving. I was drunk. I was trying to be funny. I didn't think it would spiral like this." "You didn't think," I replied. Her lips trembled. "Please. This is all too much. Darren's gone. His job's gone. The firm might sue him for reputational damage. And now my family. Half of them won't answer my calls. The other half forward everything to my aunt like I'm under some kind of tribunal. I can't fix it." "You can't," I said. She blinked. "Then why am I paying too? Why are you doing this to me?" That's when I walked into the kitchen, picked up the envelope. It was heavy and thick. I handed it to her like a final exam. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, 3 pages. On top, her name, typed clean across a reassigned lien agreement. Underneath, documentation of my full acquisition of Darren's remaining debt. I'd paid it off in one transaction. Wire transfer. Clean. Immediate. But what mattered was the clause highlighted in yellow on page 2. The cosigner assumption. Her assumption. The signature from 2013. Sloppy. Rushed. Just to help. She signed it back when she believed love meant helping him cheat his way back to solvency. She laughed it off at the time, said, "If he ever screws this up, I'll just throw a shoe at him and walk away." Now she couldn't afford the shoes. Her eyes scanned the paragraph 3 times. No, this isn't real. That clause, it doesn't mean this. It can't. It does, I said. It's enforceable. You co-signed on a defaulted debt. I own the debt now, which means I own the responsibility chain. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't gloat, didn't smile. I just stood there, letting the reality settle in her bones. "This wasn't your debt," I said. "Not at first. But the second you dragged me through his fallout, made jokes with my name in your mouth, turned me into a footnote in your social performances." I stepped forward. "You made it yours." She looked up, eyes glossy. "You're punishing me for being stupid." "No," I said. "I'm billing you for it." Her hand tightened around the envelope like she wanted to tear it. Or herself. Or the entire moment apart. I can't pay this, she whispered. You'll find a way, I replied. Like I did. She turned toward the door slowly, like her legs no longer belonged to her. Opened it. Didn't step out. She stood in the doorway, half in, half out. I really did love you, she said. Quiet. Soft. The kind of line you only pull when all else has failed. No, I said. You love the version of me who absorbed damage so you could play the victim. The moment I stopped, so did the illusion. She didn't say anything else. She left. I stood in the silence of my new home for a long time after she was gone. Not triumphant. Not victorious. Just still. Because this wasn't revenge. It was accounting. And her balance was finally due.